Yes, we'll just try to summarize what the key points that the data identified. Going back to the report, Susan gave a very good analysis on how people have responded to the mentoring question. We find that very many people, whether or not it's been formal or informal, actually welcomed the opportunity to have a mentor. Many people also mentored themselves, speaking to the value that they found, and these comments capture that quite significantly. The next slide, also another point that came up was, can't see that, what have I written? Networking. Networking, everyone recognizes as pretty valuable. What was interesting, though, is that very many people had concerns about it. No matter what stage you were in your career, if you described yourself or identified as an introvert, you felt at a disadvantage in terms of networking. And I know that myself, that networking can be a challenge if you are an introvert. The other group that finds it significantly challenging are early career colleagues. And they recognize the value, but again, they kind of don't know where to start or how to go about it. And that's something that comes through quite clearly in the responses. And finally, next slide, exclusion. This is something here I'd like to stop briefly and acknowledge the testimonies that have recently been published in the Scholarly Kitchen from people of color working in our industry. Thank you very much. It's a shame that to whoever people were, it's a shame that you had to do this anonymously, but I think anyone reading those testimonies understands why that had to be done. And I'd just like to say thank you for starting that conversation, and I hope it's something we continue to do. But going back to our own survey, these results, these comments show that these sentiments are widely felt, and we would like to try and do something about that if we can, just challenge that status quo and change it to make it a more inclusive industry. Next slide, please. So the summary of what we plan to do. The first thing we'll need to do is compile what we've presented today into a full report and an executive summary that we will distribute and share. And then do a deeper dive into the data, do some multivariate analysis, and partner with skilled data scientists and people who are experienced in this kind of survey analysis and produce and publish and share those results. Because I hope what we've presented here gives you some idea of the sheer depth of what's been reported, but we haven't done it, we've nowhere near done it justice in what we've presented today. So we'd like to delve deeper and go further. It's important that we continue this conversation and engage with the industry, and what we're trying to do, the three things we've identified based on the key comments that came through. Extend the whole mentorship relationship that people find so useful, and as Susan pointed out, sponsorship and advocacy seem to go a very long way. And one of the comments earlier on that I showed, somebody said mentorship is great for outside of your organization. Sponsorship is what you need within it. And we know that the data have told us that more senior people are men, yet we also know from the reporting that not very many women have men as mentors. One thing that we would like to see happen here is have that kind of structured pairing between very senior executive level men who can bring on and train women and bring them through to that executive stage. Networking, again, try and facilitate either through industry groups or through smaller communities, opportunities for everyone to network and find their own peers and contacts within the industry, because it ultimately is very valuable and you get to become an influencer yourself. And finally, challenging exclusion. That is something that is going to be challenging in itself, but it's something that is vital. There have been countless studies that seem to be, making the news pretty much every week. Scientific American republished one that it did a few years ago by Catherine Phillips about how diversity makes us smarter. I think we need to really take a closer look at everything we do in the industry right through the career arc, not just at promotion levels, but at recruitment stages in the first instance, and at recruitment stages at lower level, entry level jobs, to make sure we try and attract as diverse. I mean, we live in, most of the publishing houses are based in very, very extremely diverse cities like New York, like California, yet the workforce in those companies is nowhere near a reflection of the communities around them. And maybe it's time we took a different look, a different approach. Instead of trying to recruit for fit, whatever that may be, try to recruit for people who challenge us and ask us questions and make us work harder at finding solutions. And that's something we'd like to do as a result of this survey, given the wide range of voices we've heard from. So I'll leave it there, and thank you very much. Thank you all for coming to this session, and thanks. And thanks to everyone who participated. 1182 respondents was more than we had any right to expect, and we're really grateful for that. Thank you.
Hi, hi, Kristen Pruitt from Wiley. Is this thing on?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it is.
I'll speak louder. Thanks. This was all really great. So, as promised, some tough comments and questions for Matt and Simone, because we all used to work at Wiley together. I thought it was interesting, Matt, that you were talking about in the gender sort of thing that women are less likely to, or more likely to proactively go for jobs, but are less likely to go for jobs that they don't feel fully qualified for. And I just thought that as women sort of have more necessity to be proactive and to go for another job and don't have the luxury of waiting for somebody to approach them, but still aren't comfortable going for that stretch role. And I think that that was an interesting kind of the way that the slides kind of played, and you're like, I wonder why. And I just think that it actually made perfect sense. I'll apply for anything that I think I'm qualified for. I don't wait around for somebody to present me an opportunity, but I'm much less likely to apply for something that I feel I don't check all the boxes. And then I wanted to just say to Simone, blacks not feeling like training benefits them and moving in their careers, but if there is a problem with them advancing at all because of unconscious bias, the training will never seem beneficial. They've never been promoted, so the training the cause and effect is just not there.
I think that's an excellent point. It's not that they don't go on the training, it's just that they've seen nothing in return.
Yeah, they've never been promoted. They couldn't possibly.
Yeah.
And then just too quickly, for like the next time you do this, maybe, or have you just asked about people's feelings about their like retirement plans? How comfortable are people, like what, within these demographics, what are people's plans for after they work? Or are we literally gonna like drop dead in our offices? Which it seems like we might need to.
There were some comments about having to work till I'm 70 and
yeah. Mm-hmm. And then just also maybe thinking about educational gaps, so people that didn't go to college maybe but still have a lot to offer. Sometimes a college education is just not necessary for getting things done. We're in scholarly publishing, so obviously we take university very seriously, but I think it's not necessarily always has to be that way. And then are we looking at like veterans and people from the military? Are they represented at all in this industry? And if not, why not?
I think to the point of your last question, Simone made the point about recruitment policies really need to be looked at. And that's a key area for that. And in terms of retirement, there's a lot of data in the survey about that. And so when we do a multivariate analysis and we are able to go deeper, we will come up with some of that.
Yeah, I just wanted your first question or comment about the the difference between women exhibiting that they are applying for positions proactively, but then that there's a feeling that they need to have all the requirements before they apply. I wonder, like, there's a chicken and egg thing there. And, do people feel like they just won't? They've had the experience, like they won't get anything that's a reach, and then that's why there's that holding back. And then the other thing is there's all these self-help books, I think, that say, well, women should be more like men in this. Women should, a man will just apply because he's got 3 of the 10 requirements, and then he might get the job. And that's one sort of school of thought, is that women need to change behavior. But you can look at it the other way around and say, because women have experienced this bias, that's what's moderating their behavior. So there's more to be teased apart there.
Hi. I think so. Allison Beelan, Duke University Press. Thank you for sharing all of this. And I'm really curious to see how a lot of these questions break down across sector. So you've got the people who identified as publisher services, but also in light of AU Presses being the second largest, I have a hunch that there's pay disparity between the STM publishing sector and the university press publishing sector. And operating within a university bureaucracy and university HR, our pay is pegged across, at Duke, a 40,000 person corporation that also has a medical center with tremendous number of wage earning staff, and not necessarily against our publishing peers. So I think that compounds all the other vectors of marginalization. I guess having said all that, are there any plans in next steps or next steps to break things down along those lines?
Well, we can break down by the size of the company, and I think most university presses fall within that 100 to, under 500 person organization, unless you're including the whole university population, but I don't think many do. So we can do that, and then limit out the publishers. So we'll be able to identify a group, that probably is the university presses. And when we do the multivariate analysis, and we're looking for partners that will do it with us, we're talking with a few companies. If anyone knows of someone who would be glad to do it as a labor of love and a byline, and a credit in a journal article, please send them our way. But we will take a look at that kind of information. And we've begun to talk with Peter Berkery also.
Yeah, I was just going to, if I may, I've had the luxury of working, in a, fantastic. Having had we had the luxury of sort of starting at Wiley, then moving to the American Chemical Society, and now being at a university press. I think your question is very, very interesting. I mean, certainly at Rockefeller University Press, we very much use the AAUP's compensation study, which comes out every 2 years, to sort of at least benchmark ourselves against like-minded positions in other university presses. But I agree with you. Sometimes going to my university, they don't quite figure how we fit in. I would say in my limited experience, I've only been 3 years at Rockefeller University. What I see is in the university, my experience is that salaries tend to rise pretty consistently for all staff, whereas having been in the commercial sector, there have been years when times have been tough where nobody's got a pay raise, and I don't think that's happened before certainly in my university press. So. Oh, sorry. Yeah, but I think it's a really interesting question, because I do think that there are differences in those sectors.
Yeah, I'm going to hug the microphone since I have it. First of all, really thank you. I know a huge amount of work. I know a huge amount. Does that stop working? Yes. I can't talk loud. You want this one? Okay, I will try. I'm not a loud speaker. I want to say thank you. Better? Worse? Worse.
Sorry about that, lovely.
Okay, I'll try. Thank you is what I was trying to say. First of all, I know a huge amount of work went into this, and it's really, really valuable. And the thing that's really resonated with me, not just in this session, but throughout the whole conference, is too much talk, not enough action at both the organisational level and the individual level. And I think things like your survey really help on the action front, because once we have data that we can share with people, it's much easier to not just have the conversation, but to set goals for moving things on and achieving the action. And I also wanted to say on that basis, I think we have a sort of collective responsibility, but we have an individual responsibility. And one of the things that really struck me when I was working with the people who contributed that post on people of colour is the people I was working with had been with their presses for some time. They were not, entry-level people. And I said, "Are you going to be at SSP by any chance?" And they said, no, only one of them had ever been to an industry conference, and the rest had never been to an industry conference. And that is such an easy... We should all be, not just ourselves wanting to go to the meetings like this and taking advantage of those opportunities, but really looking for opportunities for people who don't usually get to go and making... I'm sorry, I'm not being very articulate, but trying to make those opportunities for people. So,
Alice, I think you've been very articulate, and I think absolutely for people, particularly small organisations, you have to send your folks here. I started at a large company. I learned a lot from people around about me. It's a lot harder if you're in a small group of about 20, or my staff now is 40, so I do think it is very important.
So it doesn't sound like it's on. It is. Thank you again. Wonderful to have data. I love data. I was struck by one comment, which was one slide that had a sort of a cluster of comments that my company says this, but it's really about my manager. And that gave me some, first of all, that makes sense to me, but it also gave me some hope, because we've been talking about doing organizational systemic things, which all need to be done, and it's starting. But that doesn't mean, well, like our keynote speaker says, you can do something Monday, right? If you're a manager, and you can take that to heart. And I think that's kind of a hopeful thought, that it really does depend on who you're working for, not always the company saying, okay, we're going to be diverse now, or we're going to do bias training, all of which are wonderful things. But there is this individual responsibility that Alice was talking about.
Can I say something on that? So I agree with you completely, and I think that a lot of what we are researching and the data that we're discovering, most of us who end up attending here are leaders in our organizations, and the change really starts with us, even if it's in incremental pieces. I know that, that's a great way to get the action started. And like the keynote speaker said, we can start on Monday. And even if it isn't going to be, huge global change, huge organizational change, every step counts. So,
yeah. And I think to that point, we can start with in the way we interact with individuals and with our direct reports in small things, where just with an awareness of an inclusive mindset, we can act differently. That changes something, and that can then have a domino effect, maybe even more profoundly, or profoundly in conjunction with those activities that come down from the top and are broader.
Hi, I'm Cece. I work for a not-for-profit organization. Really wonderful initiative, and a whole bunch of data, very meaningful data coming out, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be dissected and reanalyzed in smaller fractions that are going to be very relevant to the industry, to various sectors, demographics, and ethnicity. And I know there is a proposal to publish it somewhere too. but it might be really meaningful if bite-sized portions of the data are selective, like are taken and then communicated to the various sectors or demographics, so they know what the study or the survey indicated, and they can actually take some action to put some initiatives in place to change those behavior or add on to make improvements. So just having one publication which may or may not reach everyone might not serve the bigger role of really using this data efficiently.
That's an excellent point. And if you have any suggestions, please reach out to, come up and we'll give you a card, and we do hope to do that.
Yeah, if anybody's volunteering to put some infographics together for us.
Yeah. It's 12:30, Susan.
Oh, it is 12:30. It is, actually, it's 12:26.
We were just having a conversation over here.
Verizon says it's 12:30.
You and I are in the same time.
T-Mobile says it's 12:26.
Okay. Anyway, well,
Oh, is it the what? No, I don't think we have one more question.
Please, we need to hear from gentlemen.
I'm not on the Wi-Fi, so.
I just was wondering, how much does it play where, for the type of job it is, for the amount of people that are able to do that job? Because I know sometimes, like, I've heard things, I'm actually in IT, so I'm lucky in that, in theory, a lot of IT jobs are very valued, and they want to make sure they keep you, so your pay can rise sometimes faster than my friends who are in production, who it seemed as basically there's more of a pool of players to pick from, so your salary is going to rise so much slower than, say, someone like an IT does. And how much do you incorporate that with that? That job title has a lot of people for it, so I don't need to pay as much for it or increase your pay as much, because I can replace you more easily than I can replace someone else in the organization.
we did break out job functions in the survey, so we can look at different job functions and the salary levels and break them out by other demographic factors.
And there was one point where two of the youngest respondents appeared in the top pay band, and they both came from technology.
Yeah.
Which is like a larger standard discussion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So that's a
So anyway, thank you all for
yes,
coming.
really, thank you.